Alright, so it's been a while now since I finished Armored Core 6. I've had some time to let everything sort of sink in, and I want to give my thoughts on the game. Get this done and out of the way so I can delete the massive folder of footage that I have on my computer. Alright, so I did write down some stuff as I was playing through the game, but before we get into that, I kind of want to talk about the final run through and like my favorite characters and whatnot. So I mentioned a bit in the last video that I didn't actually get attached to a lot of the characters just because it didn't feel like we spent enough time with them and we only got to really know their ideals. We didn't get to know much about them themselves, just what their goals and motives were, really. And that really was a bit of a barrier to really feeling a connection to any of the characters, I guess you'd say. But I do think the characters were well written, so it's not really a big deal. But I do think that there was slight room for improvement. That being said, it was interesting seeing From Software do a more story-driven narrative. Because I know they used to do a lot of Armored Core games, but I didn't even know about that until they came out with Armored Core 6, or they announced that they were going to be releasing it. I didn't know Armored Core was even a franchise. Not that it really matters much, because to play any of those games, I'd have to buy like an old console or emulate it, and that's probably not going to happen. So for me, this was an interesting experience because I haven't played a game by FromSoft where the narrative was as present as it was in this game. It's more of a way to create interesting environments, is kind of what it feels like in Dark Souls, Elden Ring. But for Armored Core, it feels like the story is really front and center, like a driving force, and you kind of have to interact with it and engage with it. Whereas in a game like Dark Souls, you can play through the entire game without knowing like literally anything. As long as you know that, hey, there's these two bells, and even if you don't know that, you can just wander around until you find what you need to do. So it's interesting to me, as someone who hasn't played the past Armored Core games, to see From Software do a game where the story is like front and center and actually do it well too. I should add that. I think they did a good job on the story. I think it was very interesting. And then I guess getting a bit more into it here, of course, there's going to be like spoilers ahead in case that wasn't obvious. So Iguazu, as a character, he's probably my favorite character, honestly. Like I love Walter, Ire, they're great, but Iguazu is, I don't know. Like remember how I said I couldn't really connect to any of the characters because only got to know their ideals and their goals. Well, Iguazu, his goal is to kill me, and he's very passionate about it. And I I really liked that, honestly. It's like the character, you can tell like he's mad, he's angry. I find him to be a somewhat relatable character. Like I can understand the emotions that he has. And it's like I can understand how that drives him. And I really like that a lot. Especially the bit where at the very end, of course, huge spoilers, again, warning. The final boss, Iguazu, All Mind, the very end, he has like three phases. First phase, he's there with a bunch of goons. We just fucking roll him. Second phase, he's there with two sea spiders, and we just focus him down. At about half health, he enters the third phase, and the transition for that third phase is really cool to me because, as I said, I like Iguazu as a character. I like how passionate he is. And in that moment where he's like, get out of my head, it's like he blows off All Mind's control and kills his own sea spiders who were there basically to assist him thanks to All Mind. He just throws all of that off of him, and like ire goes down with it, but whatever. He does that. He even like harms his own chances of winning by throwing off the sea spiders and whatnot because he wants it to be a one-on-one fight with us, the mercenary Raven. That is so fucking good. I love characters like that. I absolutely love characters like that. Characters who are so dead set on just having a 1v1 brawl with a motherfucker. It is so satisfying. Like Xenos in Final Fantasy XIV, Iguazu in Armored Core 6, dudes who just want to fucking go at it. I love that shit. Basically, every JoJo's character. That's the type of shit I just love. It's so fucking good. So yeah, Iguazu really brought that last fight home for me. Like, I loved that. Damn, it was so good. I'm just thinking about it. It's I love this game. It's good. This is definitely my game of the year. Like, I really love Armored Core 6. Of course, I haven't played Final Fantasy 16, and I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. So there's a potential there for those two to like usurp that title from Armored Core 6. It's gonna hold that title, at least for the meantime. Alright, so while we're on the topic, I guess I can move to the stuff I've written down. And we're gonna start with this issue that I had with the game. So during certain voice calls or like transmissions, whatever you want to call it, there was some high-pitched ringing during some of those where every time someone would talk, there'd be like this just really annoying ringing sound. And I didn't actually notice it until I went to edit the videos. It happens a couple times throughout the course of the game. Like there's one point during the attack the dam complex where the Rubicon Liberation Army will ring you up in the middle of the mission, and that transmission has it. And then there's another one where during Choral Convergence on New Game Plus Plus, when All Mind rings you up and is like, hey, so Snail is over here, go take him out. It's also present during that as well. I did attempt to remove it in post for my videos, but it didn't really fully work.
And you will find yourself a prisoner of the corporations. We will transmit his coordinates. Eliminate him. All Mind will handle the rest.
I hope if they come out with like an Armored Core 7, I hope they just drop that entirely because that's absolutely miserable to listen to. And it only happens sometimes, which was the weirdest part. It's like, what the fuck is causing this? And I even went back to the game just in case it was like my recording software, and I played through it again, and I heard it again there. So it's obviously like a game issue. I don't know what's going on there. They were trying to go with like a staticky effect, maybe, and they just fucked it up a little bit. And it's like, please don't. I understand why Iguazu was so pissed off all the time if every time All Might tried to talk to him, it was a fucking ringing in his ears. Like, holy fuck. That must have been like a shitty version of Angron's nails from like Warhammer 40k. Like, fuck, man. No wonder he went crazy. Alright, so that was my main issue with the story stuff, I guess you could say. In terms of the gameplay, I don't actually have a lot of complaints. There was one issue that I was having. It's hard for me to put this into words. But you know how Dark Souls has like a lock-on where it follows a single enemy and then it stays on that enemy until like you swap it to some other enemy or you like kill the enemy? Armored Core 6 doesn't have that. It has like hard lock and soft lock. So hard lock will lock onto an enemy, and when that enemy like goes behind you or something, your camera will move with it, so you always have it like on screen, sort of. Soft lock doesn't do that, but kind of what I wish hard lock would do is lock onto an enemy and then follow that enemy around exactly like it does, even when there's multiple enemies around, right? So when you have multiple enemies on screen, like in the Intercept the Red Guns mission, you can lock on to Michigan, and then if he flies behind you, sometimes that cursor will jump to a different enemy, even though you have hard lock on. It's really annoying. I just wish that wasn't the case, because if I'm using hard lock on, I want to follow the enemy that I'm locked on to. Okay, so I'm going to leave this in, because I just now found this out. But hardlock works a little differently than how I thought it did, and the reason why it kept swapping to different enemies is because I was moving the mouse. So basically whenever I move the mouse, it's resetting hardlock. If you just take your hand off the mouse completely and you just let things happen, or you try very hard not to move the mouse as you're clicking it, you won't have any problems with hardlock, is essentially what the issue was. I do think it would have been helpful for me to actually understand how that would have worked, you know, before I completed the entire game. So, yeah, either way, issue is more of a non-issue, but maybe there's some gray area in there where it could have been explained a bit better, or maybe it was explained well and I just forgot it. Like, I can't really say. Like, maybe, did they mention that? I don't actually know. Operator error, at least in this case. So that one's on me. My bad. Speaking of intercept the red guns, that was actually my hardest mission to S rank. I talked about how I'd S ranked every mission in the game. I could talk a little bit about that. S ranking every mission wasn't incredibly difficult, but there were some that tested my patience a bit. Intercept the red guns was obviously the hardest because even with the flamethrowers, you're very pressed. Kill everything as quickly as possible and keep your health up because the damage fees will dig into your score. And essentially, what I did was I used the flamethrower, and then I had the lance in the other hand so that I could help stagger Michigan. It was a bit tricky. I'm going to put my build that I used to beat that on screen now. There's the code PC. Feel free to copy that and give it a try if you're having trouble with that. It's what worked for me. I'm not a fan of tanks. I can't really play tanks well, so even if I wanted to, that's not really an option for me. I went through and S ranked everything with mostly just this build. That's a different one from the one before, but it's the standard one I try to go with. I even had an upgraded version to the standard version I was using, where the poise was increased with the bipedal legs, even though I'm not a fan of bipedal legs. Just for those couple bosses where it's like, okay, I'd like to not be staggered in one hit. That was helpful for that last. No, it's not the last mission, but there was a mission where you fight Snail in the Balteus machine, and that fight was a bit annoying just because of how long it was to get back to the boss. With my standard build, it would stagger me pretty easily, so that's when I swapped to the upgraded version. All in all, I think getting all the achievements wasn't too hard. I 100%ed the game. It's actually the second game I've 100%ed in my entire life, pretty much. The first one being Dark Souls Remastered, and the second one being this. Very nice. I like the game a lot. Alright, so that aside, there was at least one other thing I wanted to talk about here, that being the parts. So in the game, right, you have all of these different parts you can use to build your AC. It's very nice. I like the system a lot. I wish they had added more parts, is kind of my problem, right? Because they did have a lot of like missile launchers, so many missile launchers, an ungodly amount of missile launchers, but they did kind of skimp out on stuff like the legs. Now, we did have a good variety in other sections, like I think booster variety was pretty good. The chips could have been a bit more varied. We could have had a few extra aim chips thrown in because we kind of have one that fits every niche, but we don't have a lot of variables within that niche in terms of like the chips. Like I was saying with the legs, I think we have, if I remember right, there are 16 bipedal legs, 3 reverse joint legs, like 2 tank legs, or is it 3? It might be 3 tank legs. And then I think 2 hovercraft legs. And that's kind of shit, to be honest. Because bipedal legs are fucking boring. Like they're fine, I guess, but you get the stuff with like the reverse joint legs where you can jump higher and you're still kind of fast, and then you get stuff like the tank legs where it's like you're beefy, and then you have like the hovercraft legs where you stay in the air, and all of that is super cool. And they only get like 3 or at worst 2 different versions of the component, and it's like, well, where's the variation in that? There's not very much, but you also had time to make like a shit ton of missiles. I just feel like that could have been better because legs really define the build. So that's kind of like the weakest part of the building system, you know? Is it's just like that's the only part that I felt like really lacked variety. I feel like the OS, or not the OS chips, but the aim chips were probably like the second worst, I'd say, just because more options available would have been nice for the chips, I think. Oh, right, another thing. I didn't like how the colors for the boosters were tied to what company made the booster. So stuff like coral boosters, or not boosters, sorry, generators. The generator determines the color of the booster. You get like a red, a flame colored one, and then like a blue one. And so that's like the three types you get depending on what corp made your generator. So you had like Institute for Coral generators, and then you had like Arquebus generators, and you had Balaam generators as well. The color of your boost was affected by which generator it was. I would have preferred having that be a cosmetic I could change, but I think it's okay as it is. I'm just a little disappointed that I can't use my favorite generator without it being blue. Um, I guess the other thing, is there anything else? I think that might be everything. I guess we could talk a bit about bosses while we're on the topic. Let me pull up like a Armored Core boss tier list. Let's actually just go through that. All right, I'm not gonna drag this out too much. I'm just gonna make a very quick tier list here with all the different bosses and sort of like rank them. We're not gonna do all the ones I don't give a fuck about. We're not gonna worry about. So All Mind, very cool boss. I would call this Iguazu, actually. We're gonna put that in S tier. Obviously, I just talked about how much I fucking loved that fight. So we're obviously gonna have that there. HC Helicopter. I appreciate this one more than I probably should just because the amount of posts on the internet about people who couldn't get past the helicopter, I thought they were pretty funny. So we're gonna put that at least in C. Yeah, we'll put it in C for now. Ice Worm fight, F. I fucking hate the Ice Worm fight. It looked good aesthetically. I just fucking hated it. I didn't actually realize there was a radar on the bottom of my screen until New Game Plus Plus. So I never actually knew where the fuck the thing was. And I understand that that part is on me, but having to use the stupid fucking stun needles and how slow they are, that weapon fucking sucks. I hate that weapon. It's so slow. It's slow to fire, it's slow to cool down. It's so fucking annoying. Plus, it's got fucking travel time. It's goddamn infuriating. And you've got to hit this thing in the head. It's like a gimmick boss. I'm so sick of that shit. So that one, fucking F tier. Hate that thing. Okay, other thing. Raven, very cool in the lore, kind of not that great as a boss. I'm gonna put him there. I like his lore, but he has a pile bunker. That's all there really is to him, his fight. Sea Spider, I thought was actually really cool. I would honestly put that probably either an A or B tier, just because the Sea Spider fight was really fun to me. It took a little bit for me to like kind of click that I needed to use like a melee weapon just to build up the stagger and stuff on it. But once I figured that out, it was like, okay, yeah, this is easy. Well, it's easy, but it's like you got to stay in the air and all that other stuff. So it's an interesting fight. There's like a certain point where it jumps up in the air and goes super, super high, so it's hard to reach. That part was a little frustrating. I just had to learn how to properly manage my boost. That was basically it. Once I got that, I was able to stagger it, and then my back lasers will actually keep me in the air. That's a nice little thing I like about my back lasers is as a light mech, when you're shooting a heavy weapon like my back lasers, my shoulder cannons, you're actually suspended in midair because you're not really allowed to move around and fire at the same time. So that's actually like a benefit for me because if I'm fighting enemies in the air and I want to stay in the air, even though I don't have enough boost for that, I can just fire those weapons and it'll keep me in the air long enough for my boost to regenerate a little bit at least. And that actually is a very interesting mechanic that I used throughout my playthrough. Balteus, I liked the Balteus fight a lot. I'm going to put it at A. When I first ran into it, though, I was not well equipped for it at all. I had this issue where it had the shield that you had to break down, and it had certain weapons that you could buy to break that shield extremely quickly. And I just didn't have those weapons, and I was trying to beat my head against that wall with the wrong equipment for maybe an hour or two, just because I didn't want to quit out of the mission and then do it all over again to get back to the boss, even though I absolutely should have done that. And if I had done that, it would have been a much easier fight. I was just really fucking stubborn, and I actually enjoy beating my head against the wall sometimes, so it is what it is. Other thing, Helicopter Xylem, that's just a fucking reskin. That's not even a big deal. I'm not gonna rank any of the guys here. I guess Iguazu, I'm gonna rate him as So in this form, I would rate him probably as C, above Raven, because he has better voice lines. Raven, I don't even think Raven talks. It's literally just a Guasu, and I like the character itself. So the character alone gets him on the list. V1 Snail, I'm gonna put him on the list. I'm gonna put him in F tier because I fucking hate that bastard. Yeah, he only gets on the list because of spite. All right, so Walter. I'm gonna put him in probably A tier, maybe like top of A tier, I'd say. I really like the Walter moment at the very end after you kill him and he's holding his weapon and it's like he slowly lowers it. It's a very nice moment, I'd say. I'll just look, it's hard for me to put it into words, so I'll just replay that segment here and then we'll move on.
The mission. My friend's wishes. Look at you, 621. You found a friend.
Walter! We have to go, Raven.
Very good character though. I absolutely loved that. Okay, Ire. I don't think I like the character as much as I like Walter. For a fight, I would rank it above Walter. For character reasons, I'm gonna put it below Walter. I did come back to S rank Walter, and I had much more trouble beating Walter for the S rank than I did when I actually played through it the first time. When I come back to S rank it, he kills me like 10 times. I got really lucky that first time going through. That's all I'm gonna say. Strider. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the Strider. I thought the Strider fight. I'm gonna put it above the HC helicopter in C tier. No, I'm gonna move it up to B tier actually, because I like the aesthetic. The aesthetic moves it up more. It's not really a true boss fight, and even in my playthrough of it, I did beat it literally by hiding behind a piece of like debris, stepping out, firing, stepping back behind the debris. Like it was not a hard fight. It was not a super interesting fight, but the sort of aesthetic and environment made it interesting. And so that gets it B tier. Enforcer boss fight, I'm gonna give it bottom of C tier just because it wasn't very difficult. This is another one that I went in and just completely rolled. Didn't have really much to say about it. Ibis. Here we go. The Ibis fight is really fucking good. I'm gonna say this is honestly my second favorite fight in the entire game. I was a little annoyed with how much it was running away during the fight itself, because you have to chase and chase and chase it down. There are a few attacks where it will come closer to you, but just the amount of running and like chasing you have to do for that boss is a little annoying. It did help me fine tune my build though. This was the boss that really pushed me to like switch things up and like perfect my build. Really just get into like all the finer points of like how different parts work, generators, weapons, and all that stuff. Figure out how to gap close. All that stuff was kind of like wrapped up into what I learned to beat this boss. And so I really liked that. It was a wall I enjoyed beating my head against. So Nepenthes, I'm gonna say this is a D tier boss. It wasn't too difficult, but it wasn't fun either. I don't like boss fights where they just attack and you can't do anything about it. So as you're falling, you can't fight back in any way. It's not really that engaging. Smart Cleaner, I'm gonna put this, I don't know, bottom of C tier because again, this is one of those ones where I just kind of rolled, same as Enforcer. It wasn't a hard fight. It's just it's got a weak point right above it. I just hover over that and keep firing down into it until it's dead. It's not difficult at all. PCA, these two guys, uh, I saw this and I was like, oh shit, it's Ornstein and Smog. And I thought these guys, they're probably a solid B tier fight. I'd say maybe above the Strider because of its gameplay. Some of their attacks reminded me of Melania, and these two guys are actually a part of the reason why it took me so long to finish the Armored Core series, because I did this really stupid thing where I wanted to get some footage of Melania stabbing my Elden Ring character on a sword and then flinging him off, right? Pretty much Melania's signature attack. And I wanted to sort of play it as like a clip, but I wanted to get the clip myself. And so I played through Elden Ring and I got all the way to the Halag tree, and then I was like, oh my god, it's been 30 hours. This is not fucking worth it. I just grabbed a different clip from a different enemy that had the sort of same move set. I used that instead. It was really fucking annoying. I don't know why I did that. All right, that tangent aside, I think we've got a few more. Juggernaut, I want to get in. I want to get in Rusty, and then I want to... Anybody else in here? Well, I guess I can rank Snail. We'll put Rusty on there. I guess we can do Cataphract. Alright, so we're just going to speed round this. Juggernaut. I don't think this Juggernaut was a very interesting fight, but I'm not against it either. I think I'm gonna put it right in front of Enforcer and Smart Cleaner. Rusty's fight was actually interesting. I don't think the fight itself was as good as a lot of the other ones. I think I'd put Rusty maybe just below Sea Spider. His character and his voice lines during the Rusty fight. Is that the right Rusty fight, actually? Wait, that's a different Rusty fight. No, I don't want that one. This Rusty. Basically, at the end of the game, for one of the routes, you end up fighting him, and I feel like the voice lines and the character make it very interesting. And so that's why he gets that spot there, but I don't feel like it was a very difficult fight, and that's why he's not ranked higher. Cataphract, I'm going to put this top of D tier, maybe. I'm going to leave it in C tier, actually. It's not super hard. It's just, I thought it was kind of funny how it's got legs strapped to a tank, basically. Snail, I'm gonna put this, where's Balteus? Balteus, this is just like a Balteus reskin. I'm actually gonna put this one like below Strider, maybe. I think the original Balteus fight was better because you encountered it with less weapons, and it was mainly focused around like the missiles, whereas the Snail Balteus fight was more like you had lasers flying or you had lightning stuff, and it was just like, I don't know, it didn't really feel as good to me. So I guess we'll leave that like that. All right, there you go. That's my tier list. All right, I think we've discussed it pretty thoroughly here. We got my thoughts in. We talked about the gameplay. We talked about the story. And we did a tier list for the bosses. I feel like I'm pretty satisfied with this. The only thing we really didn't talk about was PvP. I was kind of looking forward to PvP, but I decided not to do it as I feel like I'm at a good spot with Armored Core 6, and I don't want any more of it right now. I'd rather move on to other things, but I may come back to PvP at some point. Okay, so Armored Core 6 is getting a ranked PvP mode, so absolutely we're going to come back to that at some point. That's going to be a lot of fun. Probably sometime in January, since I'm going to be busy up through New Year's probably. But so yeah, I can't really speak on the PvP or how balance is or anything like that in that regard since I haven't done it. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with this video now. So that's Armored Core 6, guys. That was pretty good. I liked it. What did you think? Let me know. And I guess we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.